So you've got a light fighting loadout. You're going out for a couple hours reconnaissance, possibly getting stuck for an extended period, but we're not planning for an overnighter with a bunch of sustainment. That's the scenario. Let's talk about some possible light, warm weather sleeping options. All right, I realize this is not the best angle, but we're trying to keep everybody out of the sun. Camera will melt. I will melt. Taking a break and going over stuff. Okay, so this is the LCE, all right? OG badass stuff. And I've done a loadout video using this kit. If you're curious about that, go find it. I learned in the Grunt days to always have some kind of food on me, even if it was a freaking protein bar or two. A pack of coffee, pack of electrolytes. I won't go anywhere without something like that. Baby wipes you gotta have. There's always some extra things grunts need. So that's where the butt pack comes in on this type of kit. So let's just talk about our options, okay? Typically, on our butt pack, some guy will put their whoopee mounted on top of it. All right, so you might have some extra camouflage type stuff, or night vision tied down to the belt. Got extra batteries, baby wipes, some sustenance, 2 protein bars, a boo-boo kit, separate from the trauma kit, something a grunt always freaking carries. Woodland, or whatever pattern you want, tarp. Now I got bungee cords and stakes in there, so this is ready to throw up. Even if you're in a dry environment and there's 0% chance of rain, you could still have your poncho with you because it's gonna help give overhead cover to your position from, you know, aerial surveillance. If we're talking about thermals, you just make sure it's off of your body enough, and especially in hot temperatures, you won't show up at all. But that kind of helps conceal your position. You know, you throw stuff over it, use the local terrain. So the poncho, whether it's wet or not, is generally with us. Everybody knows the poncho liner. Some people call it a whoopee. This one has been horribly dyed, but this is actually the standard poncho liner. So this has been washed. It smells good. You can roll this up as tight as possible and shove it down in there. You don't even have to roll it, you know, it's kind of like a stuff sack. Now, look at our butt pack. It's pretty much maxed out. We still gotta get our other stuff in there, at least the night vision. So this is why you'll see a lot of dudes will roll their poncho liner up and they will mount it to the top of their pack. So it's not taking up room in your butt pack. You could also roll it up in your poncho and put them both up top. So then your butt pack is just for, you know, minor sustenance. But I want to do a comparison. So we all know the poncho liner. I've never liked it, all right? I've only seen it to be useful in the dead of summer when it just drops down to maybe 60 something at night. The people who say you can sleep with this in a poncho in freezing temps, they're either insane or they're from a very cold environment, or they're lying. That's been my experience, all right? You can go experiment with that on your own. Let us know how it works for you. I think you'll freeze. So there's that. Another piece of cool kit. This is the jungle blanket from Snug Pack. Now, it has more loft than the poncho liner, and I've always found that the poncho liners barely have loft at all. All right, but I think you can compress this a little bit more. It doesn't have the same dimensions as the poncho liner, and you can get different size blankets. So I think this is the extra large. You can get a smaller one, but just keep in mind, if you're doing the old school rolling up your poncho liner with your poncho, it's not going to match up. So it's about the same. You can compress it a little more. I could force it. But generally, I found that the jungle blanket is warmer, much warmer for me than the poncho liner. Okay, but again, we're talking about maybe you just get stuck somewhere, okay? So the old grunt method is we don't bring anything. If it's supposed to be something short and we want to be as light and not as bulky as possible, and this is just like a last minute emergency freaking thing we want, well, then you could just leave these home. And I learned to bring scarves or the net gaiters with me to help keep the bugs off. You zip everything up, you blouse your boots, and you're kind of just going to suffer. I mean, most guys don't really need a sleeping pad, especially in the dead of summer. It just makes it more comfortable. Okay, but generally grunts are just used to suffering. Now there is another option. Okay, you could bring your woodland bivy, just your bivy sack, and it's going to compress about this size. But let's say it is starting to get cooler at night, and neither one of these is going to work. Well, then your army issue bivy will be excellent. That by itself is warmer than both of these, but then you also get more moisture protection. Then we've got the Snug Pack bivy, which is like a third of the size of the army bivy, which means it's a lot lighter. You're not sleeping in, you know, monsoon rains for hours in your army bivy anyway. You're eventually going to get wet, and the same applies to this one. It's a lot thinner, but it is lighter. So if we go back to the original philosophy, I just want a fighting loadout, and I've got some sustenance with me, even if it's just a few hours. You know, stuff like this is good, man. You don't want to be walking around starving, and constant energy is not a bad thing. So, but we're also thinking about, oh, hey, you know, Bravo team, while you're in this area, conduct your area reconnaissance, and while you're out there, we need you to go ahead and set up a patrol base with OPs and just monitor that area for the rest of the night. Happens all the time, guys. So we do want to be prepared for that a little bit, okay? That's why the poncho is always on us. That's why we carry our night vision no matter what. And that's why we've got some sustenance to deal with that situation. I've seen some guys, they say, well, this is my fighting loadout. I don't want anything else on it. They don't even want a butt pack. They don't want anything else but ammo and some water. And okay, I can understand that. But I would just suggest to you to think about getting stuck somewhere. There's been plenty of movies, plenty of books and stories written about grunts and rangers and soft guys getting stuck somewhere thinking, well, we'll just be out for a couple hours. Okay, so that doesn't mean we might be out for a couple hours. Let's carry everything, a full 3-day pack, because that's going to slow you down. It could make you a lot more noisier, and that could be a detriment to the mission. But we could find some even ground there and say, okay, well, we're not guaranteed sleeping overnight, but it would suck to be stuck out there for 12 hours and I got nothing. Okay, so some protein bars, coffee, and electrolytes. It weighs essentially nothing. I could put this in my cargo pocket if I wanted to. Okay, so that is not anything that's going to weigh me down. It's not bulky. The boo-boo kit probably could lighten that up a bit, but again, it's not very bulky and it's not heavy at all. Baby wipes are mandatory. Absolutely freaking mandatory. As soon as you think, oh, I took a shit this morning, I'll be good to go. Leave your baby wipes back at home and go out there moving around after you've had like your barbecue freaking beef MRE. Yeah, try it. I can drop this because it's not giving me much warmth at all. It's kind of just a blanket to throw over. This is a little warmer. I can get it down to about upper 50s if I'm pushing it. The Army Bivy is great, and you know, you'll survive down to like the lower 50s, upper 40s. But again, it's bulky. So my opinion, if we're looking at, you know, it's the dead of summer, it's over 100 degrees during the day, it only gets down to about 60, 65 at night. I would be fine with nothing, okay? And I think most of you guys would too. But we do have the poncho for overhead cover, possible concealment, and if, you know, we got some rain that we didn't expect, well, now we're covered. But just in case it did dip and I wanted to have something on me, this is probably the smallest, lightest, most useful option I have found, okay? So this will protect us even more from wet weather if we get it, and it will give me a little bit of insulation. It's not going to loft up like this to where it's going to really protect me, but this gives you something to climb into. So let's throw this in the bag and see how it throws us off, you know. Organize things to where I'm the priority of where I'm going to need it, and nods got to go near the top. Okay, so now look at where we're at. We started with none of this in there, right? We just had our you know, kind of fighting observation kit. Well, now we have something to protect us from the elements in addition to our poncho. And we throw this back on there. So, you know, guys might say, well, you've got your poncho in there. What's your problem? Well, I don't like to use a poncho as a dual purpose item, okay? Because I've found that you usually get tied up using your poncho for something else, and then you've lost it, all right? So if I'm going out, let's say I get stuck in an OP with another dude. One of our ponchos is getting put up, all right? Again, overhead cover, possible weather mitigation. Okay, so one of us loses our poncho and the other one has his to sleep in. So I can fit both, and it doesn't weigh much more than it did with that friggin' slight bivvy in there. So now I've actually created a warm weather sleep system for a last ditch emergency with my overhead cover in mind. So let's say my buddy puts his poncho up and he's got his own thing, and it just dips a little bit. Let's say we get, you know, a big thunderstorm and it goes from like 90 something degrees down to like 50 something at night. Well, now I've got my poncho to wrap around my bivvy and we've got extra warmth. And so combined with the clothes we're wearing climbing into that bivvy, in my experience, that works pretty well. And more comfortable sleeping. Well, I've got that right here in my bag. I can throw a 2-quart canteen right up in the inside and the top. So we got our extra water. We've got a full 4,000 calories of food in there. And we've covered that in the loadout, so ain't gonna cover it here. But, you know, like I always tell you guys, I'm not trying to push products or any certain mindset onto you. It's all about just kind of wargaming this stuff and putting out different options. Another option is the Bushman guys from Poland. They have a really cool poncho liner system that's about the same material, but it's a little more water resistant on the outside. It's got kind of a shell that would, you know, it retains heat. It's kind of like the Snug Pack bivvy material on the outside. Then it has a fleece liner on the inside. But that, between the fleece and the outer shell, it has like the emergency blanket, like the Mylar stuff sewn into it. And it's about the same size as a poncho liner, and it'll compress to about the same size. Now, I don't have that out here with me, unfortunately, but you can just look it up. Bushman, one word, thermo blanket. Thermo blanket. That is an outstanding piece of kit. So if we're talking about in the colder months, you know, I could have this same thing on my fighting loadout, and then I could put that thermo blanket in my actual bag. And now we're talking about surviving down to freezing temps, but being pretty comfortable into the 40s. I know a lot of guys, they haven't done much of this, and they think, well, I'll just go out there and rough it. But I'll tell you guys, if there is a way to just add 2% of comfort to your kit, it's good for your mental state. I mean, if you're just exhausted, if you've done a 8 to 10 hour patrol all day and then you get stuck in an overnight OP, you're hungry, thirsty, and now you're freezing your butt off because you wanted to be a tough guy and bring nothing, you know, you might get 30 minutes of just uninterrupted sleep, and then you wake up freezing your butt off. Like, so now picture that next day, you've got to pack your stuff up, you're exhausted, hungry, thirsty, and now you got to march your ass back home, okay? That's when, you know, a lot of times grunts do that, and you just got to suck it up and freaking man up. But think about our context, you know, we're not 19-year-old kids who could basically do anything and survive anything, right? We got to kind of think a little bit smarter than that. And I don't want my guys being hardcore, just suffering and being miserable, and I'll just suck it up. Like, okay, let's see how that works. The next morning, they're absolutely crushed. Between guard duty and freezing their butt off all night, by the time we get in, they're useless for the rest of the day. They got to go lay down and sleep the rest of the day, all right? But the guys who carry a little bit more stuff so they can actually get some rest, you know, even with the guard duty and the physical labor and everything, they're usually a lot better off, all right? So, again, we're not 19-year-old studs anymore. We got to start thinking smart. any solutions you have, I'd like to hear them, and I'm sure everybody else would. So put those down in the comments, and let's see what we come up with. All right, see you on the next one.